So, Save America, Kill the Bill. There's a new thought. Anyway, we welcome back Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton to talk to us about it. Senator Cotton, as always, good to see you. I'll begin with the question I ask everybody. Why do we need new legislation? We got laws on the books that would cover a good border control policy. We just don't use them.
Well, Larry, we hope to get legislation that would restrain the hands of a president unwilling to secure our border, Joe Biden. The crisis you see at the border is a man-made disaster, and the man is named Joe Biden. The border was basically closed and secure when Donald Trump left office. Joe Biden spent the campaign in 2020 inviting the rest of the world to come to America illegally, and they implemented those policies. So what we hoped to do was find ways to pass a law that would restrain an unwilling president, not to empower a willing president. But we've seen what the Democrats' offer is, and we've seen that they are ideologically invested in open borders. This bill would not force President Biden's hand to close the border and secure our nation. That's why I can't support it, and that's why it appears not to have the votes to move forward this week in the Senate.
Well, I don't want to quibble. I'm just saying, since this president wouldn't abide by the existing laws on the books, what makes you think he'd abide by any new pieces of legislation? I don't buy it. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, it's a lousy piece of legislation. Senator Cotton, I want to ask you, though, there's another part of this stuff which has sort of been ignored, but has national security implications. There's money for Israel. There's money for Ukraine. There's money for Taiwan. What's going to happen to those parts of this bill?
Well, that's to be determined, Larry. The House of Representatives is considering this week a bill that would provide aid to Israel. I support such legislation. I think we should try to move forward with that legislation promptly. Israel needs that support, and there's traditionally broad bipartisan support for aiding Israel. Unfortunately, I see that House Democratic leaders today announced that they would block that, apparently in part because it doesn't provide enough money for Hamas, the governing authority in Gaza, and because Joe Biden said that he didn't want to just aid Israel, which is not surprising if you look at his rhetoric directed towards Benjamin Netanyahu and the government of Israel. But I hope the House can move that legislation soon and that we take it up promptly, because that's one thing that traditionally both parties can agree on, that we should support our great ally Israel, especially when they're facing an existential war against Hamas, which committed such terrible atrocities against Israelis on October 7th.
Senator, just to pause a bit on that last point, you're referring to so-called humanitarian aid, I think. And the humanitarian, we now know the UN relief workers, so many of them are pro-Hamas, and we know that Hamas tends to run the distribution of that. I don't know. Is that what you're referring to? That would be a good thing not to do.
Yeah, Larry, that's exactly what I'm referring to as so-called humanitarian aid to Gaza. Remember, when humanitarian aid, food or medicine or what have you, goes into Gaza, it's not diverted by Hamas. It's not stolen by Hamas. It is handed over to Hamas. Hamas is the governing authority of Gaza. It's the de facto government. So anytime food, water, medicine goes into Gaza, especially under these conditions, it's not going to so-called innocent civilian. It's going to hungry, thirsty, and wounded Hamas terrorists.
Last one, Senator Cotton. Did the administration get it done with respect to this so-called retaliation in Syria and Iraq, and I guess the Houthis? I mean, there's a lot of, this was a predetermined, pre-announced, we're not going to touch Iran. A lot of people, a lot of military people are very skeptical that they got it done. Column in the Wall Street Journal today about how Iran is really running our policy. What's your take on this so-called retaliation?
No, President Biden's very limited, very hesitant, telegraphed attacks against Iranian proxies did not deter Iran. And that's not my opinion, Larry. It's not your opinion. It's a simple fact, because the attacks have continued. As I said last week, the measure of success will be, does he scare Iran straight? Do these attacks stop? That's what happened when President Trump killed Iran's terrorist mastermind, Qasem Soleimani, in 2020. It's what happened when Ronald Reagan sank half of Iran's navy in 1988.
Right.
When they hit Iran where it hurt, the Ayatollahs were scared of America, as they should be, and the attacks stopped. That's not the case now, and it won't be as long as President Biden only strikes Arab proxies and militias and terror groups, because Iran doesn't care about those proxies. They are laughing at America because all we're doing is validating the proxy strategy they have used to kill Americans for 30 years.
I don't understand it. I agree with you, Senator Cotton. You know more about foreign policy than I do, but I think you're spot on. I mean, I think Iran is running us. We're not running them. I mean, we're more worried about escalation. Iran's not worried about it. They just want to get us out of the Middle East, any way, shape, or form. And the Bidens are falling for that. I'll give you the last word, sir.
Yeah, Iran is in the saddle events with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is on the back foot, as he has been all around the world, in Ukraine, in Afghanistan, with China. He is allowing other nations and other people, anti-American countries, to take the initiative, to seize it from him. And because he's so scared of escalation, he doesn't understand that the surest way to gain peace is to be strong and willing to hit back when you get hit.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator Cotton. We appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you, Larry.
See you soon.